Here is an Elizabeth Warren like organizer absolutely comstering Ben Shapiro, making him shake in his little boots, little size, 4.5 booties. This is absolutely amazing. You have to watch it. 2 minutes. All of Ben Shapiro's anti-woke tirades are just destroyed. Imagine getting owned by an Elizabeth Warren student organizer. Lamau is what I said. So let's take a look. I mean, this is really good. This is really, really good. Only because Ben is like super flustered in it. And I love that. I love when Ben gets super flustered. It just makes me happy. You know what I mean?
Know much about you, so I have a series of back and forth questions, if that's okay. Just before I ask my question.
How did Ben get owned? Mike from PA just thought it was a meaningless back and forth. It was. That such is the nature of debates. So as long as you fluster your opponent, that's it. Put him on the back foot is a wrap. He's basically stating like wokeism is just something that conservatives have created and cultivated. And I've only heard about it being described in the way that it's been described by conservatives.
So do you come from Holocaust survivors, or are you a Jewish family that didn't?
So my great-great-grandparents arrived here. A lot of our extended family was killed in the Holocaust, but our immediate
Your
family.
great-great-grandparents. Do you have friends whose grandparents were Holocaust survivors or anything like that?
Of course, many of them. Yeah, I've helped write memoirs of Holocaust.
Yeah. Their families are kind of messed up, right? My family is very messed up.
I mean, if you go through a trauma like the Holocaust, I would imagine
they teach that trauma between generations. You know what I mean?
Trauma very often, in a lot of circumstances, is passed down. I mean, I know some kids of Holocaust survivors who turned out fantastic, and some who didn't. I mean,
Yeah. Okay, so you are officially woke. That is what wokeness is about. It's like, people's grandparents or their great-grandparents were slaves.
Well, it's okay. No, it's okay. Guys, I actually want to hear. I want to hear.
No,
it's okay. It's okay. I want to hear. Let's at least hear the argument. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Go.
What? He wants to hear me.
I do want to hear it. It's fine. Let him go. Let's hear it. Explain how that's woke.
So, I mean, the whole thing is like, so during Silent Cal, Calvin Coolidge's administration, do you know about like the Great Mississippi Flood back in the 1930s?
I understand that American history is filled with racial evil.
Yeah. And that causes some intergenerational trauma, which affects people's ability to be effective, things like that.
Fine. So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So if the idea that history has consequences, of course that's true. That's not wokeness.
Yeah.
That is not wokeness. What wokeness suggests is that fundamental institutions in American society
are so... No, it doesn't.
Yes, it 100% does.
I ran Elizabeth Warren's campaign. I helped organize her volunteers around here.
Okay, to be fair, like, I would laugh at that too. It's fucking Elizabeth Warren. But anyway, listen, this is a well-intentioned guy. Okay, so let's give him the time of day.
I am a representative of wokeness.
Okay, well,
and that's just, this is all it is.
Well, I hope that.
By the way, I think this kid is doing a pretty good job of describing intergenerational trauma and systemic oppression to Ben Shapiro by using something that Ben Shapiro talks about and cares about. A concept that he not only understands, but advocates for. Intergenerational trauma for Jews as a consequence of systemic oppression that they faced and continue to face, like remnants of such oppression. So he's doing a good job. Like, this is a perfect fucking way to craft an argument for someone like Ben Shapiro by making an adequate comparison between Black people and the systemic abuse that they withstood in the United States of America and how our systems were designed in a way to oppress Black people and the outcomes of said oppression and the intergenerational trauma in a way that Ben understands. So that's actually a really good way to fucking debate lord a debate pervert, okay?
At my first tattoo, the guy had lightning bolts and 88s tattooed on his neck. And as a Jewish person, that's really messed up. It's basically a threat.
There are racist people.
Now he's trying to describe that, like, Ben should, in a way that Ben can understand, seeing remnants of that same kind of, power struggle from the side of the oppressor in contemporary society is going to very clearly create an environment of hostility. Now, the overarching argument here is most likely going to be around why certain imagery in college campuses invoke feelings, especially when the unrecognized trauma or the systemic abuse is continuing, okay? Like, there's a difference between, like, that's why you don't want to invite Nazis to a college campus, because when you invite a Nazi to a college campus, all of a sudden, that leads to a less safe space for all of the victims, the marginalized communities. It's not just about the fifis, okay, of Jewish people or fucking, trans people or black people or people just that do not fit the in-group that the Nazis are supposedly trying to defend. But it's more so the legitimate hostility in that environment when you legitimize the point of view and the perspective of a neo-Nazi by inviting them over to your college campus. Let's continue.
Who exist. The argument that you're making, and I'm going to close with this because this is going in weird directions and I don't really want to...
No.
It's going in a weird direction. He's getting owned by, a soft-spoken Warrenite, okay? A radlib, if you will.
It's not
I don't really want to get... just hold up a second. I let you get out your arguments, and now it's time for me to respond, because I let you say the full argument.
I'll let you respond, but...
No, not but. Now's my turn.
You are not characterizing what I'm saying accurately.
Now it's my turn. Your definition is inaccurate. The reason your definition is inaccurate is because any sentient human being would acknowledge that history has consequences.
Right.
But if the idea is... But that's not what wokeism is. Wokeism is a different thing. Wokeism suggests that all inequalities of today are attributable to not only historic injustices, but also continuing injustices in the now. And that all...
First of all, Ben turns around and says, I'm actually going to redefine what you're stating by basically saying the exact same thing. Okay. And so if you're going to rewrite the definition of a concept that you yourself came up with anyway, because no one's like, I'm a wokeist. You know what I mean? That's not a real thing. Why not just make it look dumber? You literally just said every human being with a brain cell believes that systemic issues or historic precedents have consequences, Historic precedents and things that happen throughout history, of course, have consequences on human beings and the way that they live on a daily basis. But wokeism is something different. It's when historic things have consequences on people that are living in the past and also people that are living in the present. That's different. It's no, you just basically repeated the thing that you previously agreed on. Very strange. You could have done you could have crafted a better, weaker argument. If you're going to straw man your opponent, don't don't go off and admit that there is the argument is exactly the same.
And that all disparity is attributable to discrimination. Not just that.
A conservative is the only person. I want to know why. Why is it that conservatives...
I guess he's trying to make it seem like all matter, like a black person stubs their toe, and that's because of racism. I think he's trying to... The straw manning on that part is all matter of discrimination, all forms of discrimination actually comes from a prior historical context. I think that's what he's trying to bastardize it into. He didn't do a really good job of describing that. He wasn't able to get that fucking straw man off. For example, if a black person stubs their toe on a Lego, that's racism. That's not racism, actually. Okay, well, yeah, that's not... No one made that argument. That's not a thing. You know what I mean? Which, by the way, in and of itself, for all the debate perverts in here, you guys know me as the guy who's incapable of debating and refuses to because he can't face the truths. But that's a logical fallacy. What Ben Shapiro is doing, he strawmanned and then he engaged with the strawman by pushing it to its logical extreme that no other sane person would actually make an argument around.
Those are the only people who define it like that. Why are conservatives...
And I think that our boy here did a pretty good job of stopping Ben in his tracks and saying, that's not true. Only conservatives are the ones who describe wokeism like that.
Okay, so we're gonna have to stop here because this is going nowhere. But
what's up?
I'm gonna have to stop with you because this is going nowhere. All I'm going to say is this. To sum up.
It's not going nowhere. When you're not talking to a college freshman that is flustered for being in front of a massive fucking audience for the first time ever with your pre-canned speech and your talking points that you have pre-established and honed for the past fucking 20 years that you've been doing this, that you got from the Heritage Foundation, you have to run away. And that's precisely what Ben is doing here. Mr. Freedom of Speech. Mr. I think all speech should, especially frustrating speech, should be allowed on college campuses, is straight up utilizing his position of authority in this circumstance to silence opposing speech because he could not do it. He could not deal with it. Let's see what
I'm trying to understand your perspective.
He says, I'm just trying to see your perspective. And immediately the crowd starts booing. It seems as though Ben is on the back foot here. And for some reason, the crowd is not responding in a way where they would, side with who the intellectual giant is here. Because obviously, debate perverts love Ben Shapiro because he puts people on the back foot. Ben owns people in the free marketplace of ideas, right? That's why people love him. That's why he's the intellectual giant, the gladiator of the right in the marketplace of ideas. And yet here, his debate opponent is doing the same thing that Ben does to other people and causing Ben to be flustered, and yet his audience is not reacting in a way that they normally would. They're not turning around and making compilation videos about this guy saying like he fucking owned him. They're not turning around and going, maybe Ben isn't all that right in this circumstance. And that's precisely why I always say debates are pseudo-intellectual wrestling, WWE.
I disagree.
Your perspective.
On it. Is this?
What?
But
What's up?
I'm going to have to stop with this with you because this is going nowhere. All I'm going to say is this. To
No,
sum up,
I just am trying to understand your perspective.
On it.
Just one more second.
On a fundamental level, you're shifting definitions to avoid the consequences of your.
Look at that. Someone ran in and literally put their fucking hand physically on the microphone. They were so scary for this crowd of young conservatives to hear. They thought, wow, we can't have this person. We cannot have this person converse in this setting no longer. I mean, the things that he's saying, they are too hard to hear.
Of your own argument. And if the idea is...
And now they're debating the efficacy of debates all of a sudden, or whether or not this debate is happening. Look how quickly Ben Shapiro, when backed into a corner, in the most Weasley fucking way he can, shifts the conversation to, well, you're actually not following the sanctity of the pre-established debate confines that we have created. You are not an interlocutor that I would like to see no longer, sir. That's what he's doing, because he's fucking Weasley, and he's weaseling his little fucking way out of that conversation because he has nothing else to say. He's flustered. He's on the fucking back foot. He's backpedaling. And this kind of shit does make me really happy, I'm going to be honest. As much as I hate debate perverts, I personally love watching a debate pervert like this get demolished, inconsequential. It's not actually productive. No one in that room is going to ever second guess Ben Shapiro's takes or anything like that. But it doesn't matter. It's good because it demoralized Ben, and I like that. It makes me happy because I'm fucking driven by spite, just like conservatives are.
And final point. If you are going to hold on, if you are also, just final point to sum up there.
Wow, a group of young Americans, youngest person in that crowd being like 55, are celebrating the fact that someone was swiftly removed for the crime. And I mean the crime, the criminal act of trying to have a conversation with Ben Shapiro. Perhaps conservatives don't care about free speech after all. My, oh my, I am shocked. Let me tell you how shocking this is. Oh my Lord.